All right. Good morning, party people. How we doing today? It is a beautiful Saturday morning. I know it's a little rainy, but it's still beautiful. I was out with the dog. We did the thing. I took my son to work. It was a beautiful way to start the morning. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. By the raise of hands, can you guys hear me okay? I have had to adjust, hold on, my audio, my visuals, all kinds of different stuff in order to make sure that I'm getting everything correctly. Okay, let me adjust. There we go. There we go. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, perfect. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name is Philip Ramos. I am a coach and mentor trainer for Three Key Elements. I'm also a certified Gallup strengths coach, and I absolutely love what I get to do. And every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. and every Saturday morning at 10 a.m., we have been doing interviews, talking to people about what makes them special, what makes them unique, what makes them incredible. How are they operating in their strengths? We've been talking to coaches and mentors and some of these people, entrepreneurs. How are they thriving in them? What are some of the things they still struggle with? So I've absolutely loved doing this. Not like it. I love it. I'm fascinated by people. I'm fascinated by what makes people tick. I'm fascinated by what makes people amazing. So before I jump in and we get into the details of the interview, I'm also going to be talking to you a little bit. I always try to do a little teaching technique, right? A little something before we jump into our interview. So before we do that, let me just take some time here to introduce a couple, myself. Let me introduce my wife, my partner. She's the person that got it all started with me in terms of self-development, in terms of growth, in terms of mindset. It's my beautiful wife, Melissa. That's a typical morning for us at our Sugar House Park walk. So definitely enjoy that with her. These are my kids, my boys, Sebastian, my oldest boy, Sebastian, and my youngest boy, Manolo. My son is literally 2 weeks away from heading out to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on a Spanish-speaking church mission. And so excited for him. He's tickled. He couldn't be more excited. So, but just some pictures there of my family. Also, just want to recognize Three Key Elements, Kirk and Kim Duncan. They're the president and vice president of Three Key Elements, and their entire mission has always been to help people fulfill their mission, activate their minds, work on their emotional management in order to improve who they are and what they do. They've been doing it for quite a few years and have been very successful. And so I feel blessed to be a part of this team. It's a very intimate team. But at the same time, we have a far reach, expanding, all across the globe. I have an opportunity to work with clients because of Three Key Elements all over the world. So it's been a blessing. It's been a lot of fun. Went from these were our seminars used to look like. I used to volunteer and be in the back room there, and we've expanded now to where we're able to expand our reach online. And in fact, I've been working on contacting different people, within Three Key Elements, past students and different things. And who knows, maybe I'll call you one day about different programs. But and one of the things that, and talking to them about, where, what are they still utilizing the things they've learned? But one of the biggest call outs that they have is, Philip, when are we going to do an online event again? Like, when are we going to do something, or sorry, not online. When are we going to do a live event again, right? Where we can connect and high five and all this great jazz. And I'm like, oh, I gotta do that. I did one in December and it was super fun. But people are like jonesing for another one. So I got to do another one, right? Raise your hand if you'd like me to do that. Like, I hear this all the time, but I'm like, but would we really want to do this? Because I want to go in a deeper dive into some more heavier stuff when it comes time to some strengths. Okay, cool. Because that'd be super fun. That would be super fun. I'd love to do that again. Okay, so let's jump into some ideas, some concepts as I introduce. Some of you might be familiar with Clifton Strengths. Some of you might not be. Okay. And so before I do, I always want to take just a little bit of time to introduce the idea, introduce the concept before we jump into the interview. But before I do, I want to introduce first and foremost, Don Clifton. He was recognized with a President's Commendation by the American Psychological Association as the father of strengths-based psychology and grandfather of positive psychology. So in a time where self-development was rampant, right? His entire approach was based on what was right with us versus on what was wrong with us. I love this quote, right? What will happen when we think about what is right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them? And I think that's so true. That's so true in our lives. It's so true in Judah, as a father, as a spouse, as a relationship builder myself. I can't help but wanting to be a good husband, or being a good father, or wanting to be a good coach or mentor. And often, right, we look at where people are lacking and think, oh, you could be so much more. Let's work on those areas, right? Well, his entire focus was, let's take a look at what's great about people. Let's figure out their natural talents, the way they naturally think, feel, and behave, what motivates them, who they are, what motivates their performance, and let's invest there, right? Because investing into our weaknesses is exhausting. I'm not going to get any taller. So for me to think, right, I'm 5'6". Now, granted, I mean, there's some ball players out there that are probably, they're 5'4" and dunking the ball, but I'm not one of them, right? So for me to think that I'm going to, pursue this NBA career, when really, if that was my only option, I was like, no, what are some of my talents, right, that I can do at 5'6", 5'5.5", my wife says 5'6" on a good day. But what are some of the things that I can pursue, right? What are some of the things that naturally that motivate me? And that's part of this whole journey and discovery in terms of your natural talents. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, I get this question a lot about, is this a personality assessment, right? How does this compare to Myers-Briggs, Hogan, Kolbe? Now, one of the things you can do, if you go to Gallup.com, you can actually research like Hogan versus Gallup, or Clifton Strengths, Myers-Briggs versus, or Kolbe versus, and you'll find that they all have their unique differences in what they do. The thing that I love about Gallup, and what Gallup focuses on now, over 90% of Fortune 500 companies use Clifton Strengths within their organization, number one. And over 1,000 universities and college use Clifton Strengths around the world. And it's because it's what it's meant to do. What Clifton Strengths is meant to do is drive performance. It's so your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, what makes you tick in terms of performing, in terms of showing up, in terms of engagement, in terms of, right, what you want. That's what I really love about it. And that's one of the things that is so important that people really recognize. It's not just a personality assessment. It's what drives you, it's motivates you. And that's what I'm going to talk about this morning. Before we jump into our interview, I want to show you this, how cool this is. And I've taken personality assessments. I've done those things, but I've never, ever had anything teach me the way Strengths has taught me about Philip Ramos. Okay. Now, before I jump into that, I want to share one more quote by Don Clifton. I paraphrase this all the time, but as you begin to think seriously about the unique constellation of talents that you have, you recognize that other people each have their own unique combination of talents as well. You begin to see them through a different lens. The things that used to annoy, irritate you are now seen as the very things that make the other person successful. Oh, I'm not even showing my screen. So hold on, one more time. Let me show the screen. You guys can see the quote. But this quote right here was something that really, really hit me strong, because up until this point, especially from Strengths, right? I'm a little bit selfish. I'm looking at me and I'm thinking about me and thinking about, okay, what motivates me? But the moment I read this quote by him, all of a sudden it totally expanded what I realized is that I was like, okay, I got to slow down here. So if I'm reading this right and I'm understanding this correctly, if me, Philip Ramos, right? I, Philip Ramos, am unique in the way I naturally think, feel, and behave, and what drives my success and what hinders me, right? That I'm just my own. For me to assume that I know what makes the other person think, that I know how they operate, that I know what they need, I'd be absolutely wrong, right? Because I'm so unique. I'm still learning about myself. I didn't even really know what makes me tick. So how can I really know what makes my wife tick, my kids tick, all these different things? So exploring strengths hasn't just benefited me, but it's benefited every relationship I now create and I now have, because I want to be open to what makes you naturally tick. I want to be open to the way you naturally think, feel, and behave. I want to ask questions. I want to see your strengths, because when I can see why you do the things you do, especially in there, it begins to click, because I wouldn't go about it doing that same way. I'm not you, right? I'm not my wife. So, but the more and more I get clear that this is what makes me successful, then I honor what makes you successful. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if that makes sense. I can't stress this enough. This is one of the greatest principles that I have learned in the process of Clifton Strengths, is that what makes me special and unique, if I'm going to own that, and I'm going to say I claim that, I better be open to the fact that you are also unique in the way you operate, in what motivates you, in what makes you successful. And I can't find it annoying or irritating, right? Because it's not the way I would do it. Okay. So now I want to show you an example of how this works. So I'm going to introduce my strengths for those of you that don't know, and we have some new people on today. So this will be super fun. So this right here is myself. Now, if you have your Clifton Strengths Assessment, I pulled this off of page 21. So if you guys go to page 21, you'll be able to see your own bar and this bar is important, because what this shows you is from what in terms of your performance, what drives the performance in basically kind of like an order of operations, right? First and foremost, I am about building relationships, then I'm about influencing, then executing, and last, strategic thinking. So in whatever goal this could be a health goal, this could be a money goal, this could be a life goal, this could be a business goal. It doesn't really matter what the goal is. I need to look at it in these perspectives, because they're in these, I need to look at it from this perspective, because this is what motivates my performance, my desire. Okay. So here I am, Philip Ramos, and the way I naturally think, feel, and behave. Okay. Now, if I were to pursue this goal of money, health, relationships, what I would need first and foremost is, right, this is a need that I have. I need to, in fact, because it's first, I'd probably, about this much of it is going to be from a relationship perspective, right? How does this benefit the people? How do I work in terms of people, right? This drives everything that I do is people. Next is influencing people and getting in and being a part of people, working with people, moving people, engaging people, right? That's why I do these interviews. Last is definitely executing, right? Executing, and even last, strategic thinking. Okay. Now, the purpose of this is to locate what motivates you and what your needs are. Inside of here, I have specific needs and specific motivators that motivate my energy, not my action, not necessarily dictate exactly what the action step is, right? So if I have a health goal, do I need to follow a meal plan? Do I need to go to the gym? Do I need to do these things? Absolutely. But my motivators for those action steps exist in here. Okay. And that's what I help people find. That's what I help people do. Now, let's take, right, based on the quote that I shared with you, now let's take my wife. My wife has the same health goal. She has the same money goal. Okay. So now let's introduce Melissa here. Melissa, and the way she naturally thinks, feels, and behaves. Let's bring her bar in here. So look at mine, right? Relationship building, influencing, executing, strategic thinking. And before I move mine off, I'll show you my wife. Look at my wife here, right? So look at her bar. Strategic thinking, influencing, relationship building, and executing. So are we, in a lot of ways, there's some opposites, right? There's some opposites. So let's, and this is my goals. This is how I motivated, how I work. Now let's bring Melissa into the equation here. Now, if we're looking at Melissa and I'm helping Melissa, we have the same goal, same health goal, money goal, relationship goal. My wife is going to be more motivated from a strategic thinking process. Okay. Then there'll be some influencing there. Then there'll be some strategic thinking processes in there, or some executing. Does that make sense? So first and foremost, she's got to process it up here. This is the last place that I look for in my goals. Last place. It needs to make sense to Melissa. It doesn't need to make sense to me. Does that make sense to you? Raise your hand if that makes sense to you. Do you see that? This, look how different this is. This is Melissa. Okay. Now let me bring you back, Philip. Let me bring you back, Philip, one more time. Look how different this is. Now, who am I to say that Melissa needs to understand and be on the same page that I am when pursuing the same goal, right? If I'm saying that, I actually don't understand her. I'm not listening to her. I'm not recognizing her needs, her purposes, what she's motivated by. However, if I'm open to it, if I'm saying, okay, babe, we have the same goal, so let's take you in consideration. Look at the difference of this one right here, just this alone, right? Does that make sense? Now, I want to break it down one step further so you guys can see it in terms of your specific strengths, okay? So I've taken mine and my wife's top 3, okay? So here I am again. I'm looking for my needs, my motivators as I pursue this goal. Within my top 3 strengths, right? Positivity, woo, and activator. What this says about me is that I need to feel great about whatever the goal is. The moment I feel great about it, the moment I can bring on new experiences, new things, new people, I'm all in. Doesn't matter what the goal is. This could be going to the gym. This could be my weight goal. This could be like money, relationships. This could be business. As long as I feel awesome about it, I'm all in. Let's do this. Like, let's 100% do this. I'm game for this, right? This is Philip Ramos. Now, I bring in Melissa. We got some new dynamics here, right? We got some new dynamics. So look at this. Now we're going to bring Melissa in. So one of the common things that Melissa and I have are activator, okay? Which means us being excited about taking action or urgency to take action. But what changes here is this, okay? This is right here is what changes. This gets moved down a little bit because now we have her number 1 is strategic. Her number 2 is futuristic. So look at that. And this right here is what changes this a little bit. Now, if I were to say, and the reason why there was more weight in the positivity, right, that I put in there because it was my number 1 strength, then, my number 2, number 3. Now, and when I didn't understand strengths, when I had no clue what the report said, I thought, hey, you have activator number 3, I have activator number 3, we must be the same. What I didn't know that for my wife to actually take action in life, for my wife to actually pursue her goals, money, business, health goals, it didn't really matter, relationship goals in our marriage, it had to make sense to her. She had to have a plan. She had to know what the future was going to look like, and she was all in to take action. What did I need? I just needed to feel good. So think about that. Now, that has made me dramatically successful in my life in lots of things that I did. Not because the plan made sense, not because I saw what it was going to look like in the future. I felt good about it. I felt good about it. Now, have there been, and I talk about this every time, right? There's you have how a talent benefits you and how it hinders you. So has my positivity gotten me in trouble because I've just been based on feeling? Absolutely. No doubt about it, right? No doubt about it. Has Melissa's overthinking it gotten in her way because she's like, oh, I can't take action yet because it doesn't make sense to my brain? Absolutely, right? Every talent has what we call a balcony or basement, or the way it helps you and the way it hinders you. But what I hope you're seeing here is the needs and the motivators. Needs and motivators. They are different for every single one of us. In our marriage, with my son, I was literally talking to my son this morning as I was dropping off work. He's preparing for his mission. I was talking about his strengths and his needs and motivators. They are different. You can't go somewhere and think that, oh, I know what this person sees. So when I help people set goals and when I help people reach goals, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at what are the needs that you have. I'm looking for what are the motivators you have. For me, just to run without doing that, I'm missing a massive opportunity to really help. Does that make sense? I'm missing a massive opportunity to really engage. So I just want to show this to you. As we prepare for our interview today, I want you to really see that you guys are more, number one, that you acknowledge your differences. There are similarities after all of us, right? If you look at just the bar alone, that we maybe all have relationship builders, or we all influencers. My wife and I are both influencers. This is a great example real quick. Okay. So if I were to only look at this, and this is how other reports, right, or other personality assessments were broken up into 4 categories, 6 categories. Based on this, my wife and I are both influencers, right? We're both influencers, so we want to move people, or we want to be influencing, right? But how we go about that and the needs prior to the ad influencing is massively different. But when I just assume, when I just make a decision and wonder, hey, how come she's not on board? How do I get her on board, right? How can I help her? And so this is what I do, and what I love doing as a coach is that I look for inside. Number one, I want to know what your goals are. I want to know where you're headed. And that's that we just got to define that. But along that process, do you know what motivates your needs? Do you know what we need to lean more heavy into? So when people take their assessment. I was meeting with a gal yesterday and she took her assessment. I have Stephanie's up here. I'll bring up Stephanie's before I bring her on. But this right here is Stephanie's report. Now, if someone were to, this gal that I was meeting with yesterday, she took her assessment, looked at the report, and had no clue how to read it. That was that same guy. I didn't know what I had. I had 25 pages that I downloaded. I was like, what is this? What does this mean? This is Chinese to me. And I speak Chinese. I lived in Taiwan for 2 years, right? So, but still, it was like that foreign to me. I'm like, what is this? I don't even know what this is. I read positivity. Cool. Awesome. I got emotional because it means that, oh, positivity is actually a talent. I thought it was a hindrance, right? But that was it. That was all I understood. So same thing as I'm working with this gal and I'm taking her through this process, and need to help her understand what we're looking for and how magically beneficial this can be. This 25 pages changed my life. I am here doing what I'm doing today because someone invited me to take the assessment. That's it. It's why I became a certified strengths coach. It's why I do what I do. Taking the assessment changed my life. Well, let me be clear. Getting help in understanding the assessment, getting coaching on the assessment is what changed my life. Taking the assessment was just the first step. And I didn't even look at it for 10 months after I took it. After I took it, I saw it, it was cool. Then I shelved it. I really didn't do anything after that. So it was the understanding. It was me diving into it. It was me getting some clarity as to what really this means. So if you're out there and you have your assessment, or if you're watching this video and you're watching this recording and you're wondering, you just took it and you didn't really go into it, you're missing out on a massive piece, a massive opportunity. All right. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So by the raise of hands, do me a favor. Did you guys learn something from that? Because I always want to make sure that before we jump in, I want to teach a little something, because I want to show you guys massive, awesome. I mean, awesome. I love that. That's my goal. I want to empower you. I want to help you. I want you to discover whatever your cause is, whatever your mission is. This is my cause. This is my mission. This is what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. Is I believe that every single person in this world should know what makes them tick. Where are their motivators? What helps them find value in who they are? And if I could help be a part of that mission, and that's a cause, and that's my purpose, I'm all in 100%, because I believe every one of us should know. Every single person should know what's amazing about them. All right, cool. Okay, so I'm going to bring on, while I'm having Stephanie, do me a favor, raise your hand. While I'm having her when I'm bringing her on as a panelist, let me bring on her here. You guys can take a look at her report. So this is her 34 report. This is who she is. Super awesome gal. Excited to have her on today. Hold on one second. Let me bring her on as a panelist, and then I'll have her open up her her audio or video, all that good stuff. So give me 1 second. It's kind of, sometimes it takes a minute. But while she's coming over, oh, there she is. There she is. So make her a co-host. There we go. So she's able to turn on her camera, all that good stuff. Okay. So while she's coming on, and while we're bringing her on here, oh, Stephanie, your hair's shorter. I like it.
I did cut my hair.
I love it. Okay.
My
So
camera, okay.
well, yeah, you're looking fantastic. Well, so let me take a few minutes to introduce her. One of the, I remember the first time I had a chance to talk to Stephanie. She was sitting outside. She was sitting at a table, and because I invited her to join it, and she'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I started this program and she was invited to this program. I think I invited a friend who then invited her mom, who then invited her, and then she invited her sister. Was that right, Stephanie?
Yes, exactly. Okay, cool.
Right. I got the timeline right, or the process right. So she is a homeschooling mom of 6. She's a business. She's an entrepreneur, and she has a business that helps helping busy moms live intentionally. She's also a birth doula. Now, she kind of just threw this, just a couple different things, but just to elaborate, she's not just a birth doula. Like I've seen her website. Like she knows her jazz. She knows her stuff. I was reading some of the comments and some of the stuff. I was like, oh, wow. Like, so she's, she's pretty incredible. She's pretty amazing. And she's very good at her business. Her and her sister, in fact, if you guys watched the interview that I did a few weeks ago, this was last Wednesday, I think.
Yeah.
It was with Crystal. And so they work in their business together. And from what Crystal said, you guys had a phenomenal month last month. So congratulations to you.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Super awesome. So, okay, so let's as I've kind of shared some things, like, do me a favor, just anything else you want to share as we're jumping into, that you do, or, strengths, anything that you want to add to it as we jump into this interview.
I just had a thought when you said taking the assessment won't change your life.
Yeah.
It won't change. Taking the assessment itself will not change your life. I just can't emphasize that enough, because it really is exactly what you said. Understanding your assessment is what will change your life, and it will. It totally will.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that is I remember talking to you, and you were sitting at your table. And if you look at the date, I want everybody to look at the date in this one. So she took it March 28th of 2018. I took mine at the very end. I think it was December of 2019, if I remember mine. And I didn't meet with her. I didn't meet with you until, so let's see, I met with you in, I want to say what? Yeah. This was this past year, not, it was last year.
It was last summer, I think.
It was last summer, right? It was
the
summer of 2021. So the summer of 2021, and this is, and she took it in March of 2018. Now, and I remember when I was sitting with you, you actually didn't really know a whole lot of what you actually took, right? You didn't know what you actually had when we sat down together.
I didn't get it at all.
And what's interesting about that is that I have often had the opportunity to introduce new people to strengths, but there are a few people that that I'll be interviewing. There's a few people that I work with that have had their assessment for a couple of years, in this case, prior to helping them understand, hey, this is what you have, this is what it says, this is how you use it, this is how you want to implement it. So this is really good, because I think that often people think, right, first off, I feel like I got to enroll them in taking the assessment. Like, it's almost like that alone is like the chore. Okay, you just got to take the assessment. And let me get you to take the assessment. How can I get you the assessment? I'm not even teaching them. I'm not coaching them. I'm just like twisting their arm to try to even get it to take the assessment. Raise your hand, by the way, if you guys have people in your relationships, in your life, that you're trying to struggle with this, because I feel like, that I'm not the only one, right? I mean, it's like, come on, you got to do this. You have no idea what the value of this is. And so that helping people understand, that's just the first step. Like, that is literally the most basic step that you can take. Once it's the willingness to make the time, energy, and other financial investments to really actually implement what you have there. So I love this, because I think you're just a great example of this, Stephanie.
Yeah, my strengths report sat unused somewhere until I met you.
Well, okay, so let's jump into this here now. And I think, again, you're a great example of this. You took your strengths report 2018. What was your first, so number one, why did you take it, right? And number two, what was your first impression when you got your results?
I took it because I had heard a presentation on the strengths, and I think I had a code to get a free test. And so I was like, okay, we'll take it. And it was pretty intense, like the actual, quiz or whatever. And when I got my results, I guess I just thought it was kind of like a glorified personality test.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's cool. I was a little bit surprised when I read through some of it, because like my top strength, I was reading, the little, whatever, what would you say, like characteristics it says of each thing. Yeah. And I was like, I don't really think that I am good at those things. Like, it didn't really seem like it was true. But as I kind of worked through it, after I started talking to you, I realized those things actually were true. It's just that I've been playing in the basement of that strength my whole life. So because of that, I'm not it for me, I guess it wasn't being used as a talent.
And that's real, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's probably the biggest thing that most people don't recognize when it comes time to strengths. I'm glad you brought that up, is that we get this assessment and we see a word or a talent there. We read the characteristics. I think that's a great way to describe it. And then we question, well, this is wrong because my whole life, this has actually hindered me. It actually hasn't helped me. I mean, I saw the same thing. Like when I saw positivity, I got emotional because I thought this is actually a weakness. Like people have said, Philip, you're overly optimistic. You're too optimistic, right? Stop looking at things like that way. Let's talk about the solution. I was like, well, I thought part of the solution was being okay with it,
Right.
right? And that for me that made sense. So same thing. When I saw this, I was like, oh, this is actually a talent. This is actually something that benefits me. And again, I didn't know how to read this 25-page report, so I just set it aside. And I was like, one day maybe this will change, and it did. One day I was
Right.
inspired, and kind of took it from there. But I love that was, because I think that's common. That's very common for people to look at this and be like, is this really me? And that's why having a conversation with someone that knows how to read the report, understands the report, can dramatically change your experience with the report itself, right?
Yeah, it was really weird when I talked to you the first time, and my mom had told me about you already, and she, "Oh, Philip is so amazing. You've got to listen to this." And da okay, mom. Okay. I guess I have this report, so I guess I'll come. But the first time we had that conversation, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're like a mind reader." I've never experienced that before.
Awesome.
Like,
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. Your sister said the same thing when we actually did her report or did her interview. She was saying, "Yeah, my sister, my mom, they're saying you got to come." You're like, you know what? You guys do this thing, that sort of thing." And so I think it's really funny that like it's that is that. And again, I want to be super clear on this. I am not. I have never in my life ever thought I would be a strengths coach. I never thought I would be a strengths coach. I never thought I'd be a mentor, a coach, a uh, whatever word you want to call it. I never thought I would be that. It's strengths that totally changed that for me. I thought, because for me, and I'll be super honest, I don't think I'm the best coach. I don't think I'm the best mentor. What I'm great at, what I'm really good at, and what I can own is that I know the way you naturally think, feel, and behave in terms of what motivates you to reach what you want to do. And I also can see what's holding you back in the way you naturally think, feel, and behave. And I'm really good at that. And so I love that helped me see, oh, wow, I can do this, right? So I appreciate the compliment. And I want everybody to know I'm not a mind reader. I'm a strengths report. I'm a report reader, right? I understand the dynamics. I understand the how they complement each other. I understand how they work, which has made me successful in what I do. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. But I realize like this is right. This is really what it is. And when people get good at it, when you get good at it, you can read your spouse's reports. You can understand things about other people. So with that being said, what were your thoughts? What kind of stood out? So, you and I talked, you understood, okay, I don't know if this is real. What's going on here? When you and I started talking, you started really looking at your strengths. What were the things that kind of started to stand out for you in terms of good, bad? What were some of the big things that kind of stood out to you?
the first thing that stood out was that, whoa, these some of these talents have been running my life in a negative way for a long time. I think that was my first big realization.
Which one
Because, like, for
specifically?
example, responsibility is my number one. And like I said, when I read it, I was like, I don't know if this is right because it said, people depend on you to get things done. And, um, you know, because responsibility is so important to you, you follow through with things. And I was like, gosh, I kind of feel like I dropped the ball on everything, is how I feel like. And that's something I beat myself up about a lot. But then I realized it's because responsibility is number one that I tend to take on a lot. And so I take on too much because I lean that way. Like you say, the way you naturally think, feel, and behave is that it's important to me to be responsible, so I take on a lot, and then I'm still human, so I can't complete everything. So it gave me that awareness to manage it. So it actually becomes a strength. Because, like you say, these are just the report gives you the way you naturally act and your tendencies, but those aren't necessarily your strengths unless you put effort in. So I think that was one thing that surprised me too, was like, whoa, this is a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you used the word work, right? I was interviewing Becca it was last Wednesday. She talked about process, right? Is that that when people don't understand the process behind Clifton Strengths or the report, that you think that, oh, I'm this word, so now I just get to be this word, responsibility, for example. You have to
Hmm.
understand the dynamics of how, for example, your responsibility works with your input or your intellection or your empathy. How does that complement? How does that hurt? How does that support? How does that create? But
Right.
I love that you were so open to the idea of it, seeing, like you've been through some of the things that I've done, that awareness, right? People often want to skip the awareness. They often want to
Yeah.
skip, and they're just like, oh, that doesn't make sense to me. But they don't want to sit there and think, okay, how has responsibility really served me in my life? How has it really benefited me? And then how has it hindered me? So that's awesome. And I know you were always good about, you and your sister and your mom, you guys were always good bouncing, different realizations back and forth about those kinds of things. But that's a big component. That's a big piece that I think that people often miss, that they don't take enough time to really study. Like, that's,
Right.
you know, they just want to look at certain aspects of it, but they don't really want to take a deeper dive into everything about it. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, as you've gone through that, like, what are because you're obviously noticing how that has hindered you. How have you noticed some of these things in terms of how they become maybe like superpowers for you? Like, you're like, whether you're practicing them, whether you're engaging them, how have they become like actual strengths? In terms of the way you're developing them and the way you're using them.
Um, I've realized why I've known for a while, like empathy is one of my high ones. And I'm like, oh man, yeah, I'm really good at feeling what other people feel, which can be negative for sure.
Yeah.
But I can understand people, which makes me be able to relate to people a lot better. And so because coaching is a component of my business, um, it's really helped me to realize how I can serve people better because that's one thing that's unique about me. So I think that sometimes, like you said, we get annoyed with the way that other people are, not realizing that it's just our strengths, right? So, I mean, that's definitely a benefit in a people business is being able to understand others truly. And so I feel like that's definitely one of my superpowers and also something that helps me with my relationships in my home. I mean, it can also be a hindrance because it makes me feel bad easy,
Yeah.
but I also have learned, well, I am learning, I guess. I feel like I have a lot of work left, but I'm learning how to really tap into that to strengthen my relationships.
Well, and I want to, again, recognize that this is one of these games. It's an ongoing game. Like, I am still learning all the time about, how my woo impacts my goals, my positivity, these things, and I can overdo something and I can underdo something. And so I think that we have to acknowledge, right? So you're a mother of six, which means you've been married for, a little bit. You're homeschooling them.
Mhm.
You have a business. You have a business with your sister. All these different dynamics. So if we're going to be honest about how important it is, I guess if we're being honest about where we're at, we also have to recognize all the experience that you've from the time you were born until now, high schools, just college life, kids. You have learned how to operate in a way to that can, in some ways survive, but also in some
Mhm.
ways thrive. But you haven't necessarily learned how to do all that within your natural way of thinking, feeling, behaving, right?
Right.
And that's why this is such a practice game. That's why, like, this is like, I'm at 43 years old, after everything I've done, I almost feel like I'm retraining, right? How I'm gonna act tomorrow, how How am I going to build this relationship tomorrow? How am I going to do these things tomorrow? Because I have to take these different things in consideration. I can't base them off of, all these failures or even
Right.
successes and think that this is exactly, how I did it. I have to separate it and say, okay, wait, this helped me here. This worked here. This didn't work here. How, what do I got to amplify? What do I got to do? And because I'm always looking at it within my strengths, my natural way of thinking, feeling, behaving, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So it is an opportunity for me to practice being in my strengths or work in my strengths. So I just think that it's an it's an ongoing journey that when people are committed to, right, they're open to growth. We're open to, realizing that we still got a lot more to go, right?
Right. One thing that I want to mention is, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is we always look at what we are no good at and like to feel less than, you know? And one thing with like, especially as entrepreneurs, when we look at other people's businesses, it's easy to be like, oh my gosh, they're doing so good and I suck. And if only I could be better at this. And if only I was better at social media and all
Yeah.
this. And for me, like, I struggle with social media so much. I hate it. And when I got my strengths report and realized like I have zero influencing strengths, like all of them are at the very bottom. And so for me to have the permission to be like, forget about that, for you to tell me, look, you can do the things you're really good at. And here's some ways that you can do that. Here's some ideas for you to maximize the strengths that you have and forget about, all the other things and realize that all the people that I'm comparing myself to have a completely different profile than me. So that's one of the biggest things for me, I feel like.
I love that. So just so that everybody knows what Stephanie's talking about, if you look at her report, and you see, for example, these influencing strengths, when people don't know how to read the report, they'll look at this and they'll say, "Oh, I have zero influencing strengths," which means I can't influence. Or they'll look at this right here, this bar, look at Stephanie's bar, right? They'll look at this and be like, I guess I can't do this. And so, like where Stephanie's at in a business of working with individuals or, working at being an entrepreneur and, bringing new people on her team, enrolling new people, it would be easy for her to say, I guess I'm not designed for this business. I guess I can't work in this business. I can't thrive in this business. And Crystal actually talked about the same thing. And what's so important is that we look at how this isn't whether or not you have influencing strengths in you. It's how do you become the influencer? You can become an influencer. You could be in, I love this, what Gallup says, you can be successful at any role by really owning your strengths. So in this case, how can she use her responsibility, your input, intellection, empathy, harmony, your futuristic, your relator to be the influencer that you are? But when we compare or we look at other people, we go to trainings, right? We go to these seminars and we're in this room of all these other people and they're giving us all these different tips and ideas of what worked for them. Then we get out there and we're like amped up on this, all this energy, and we're like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And we get out there and we're like, yeah, I hate this. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't even want to do any of this. And it's so common because what motivated them in that process is not necessarily what's going to motivate you. Now, could the action step be the same? Could you still post on social media? Could you still do the webinar? Could you still do the event? Absolutely. But you're looking for the motivation within who you are. So I love that you brought that up because that is such a big thing that people miss, that people don't, they're not aware of, and they don't lean into. They dismiss their value, they dismiss their awesomeness, thinking I'm not like them, so I can't have the success. I can't be that person in the role. And I just want to say, you and your sister are a great example because both of you have low influencing strengths. Yet,
Right.
when I talked to her last month, you guys had a phenomenal month. And I just think that that's a great example of you guys learning how to be who you are and play in what motivates you. So, way to go.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just think that's awesome. So how would you say that you use your strengths on a daily basis? Like, how would you say that you play in your, because you're a state, you're a homeschooler, right?
Mhm.
Homeschool mom, and obviously you're an entrepreneur, you got all these different things, you're a wife. How would you say, that you use your strengths on a daily basis?
Um, it's kind of hard for me to see like where do I use them the best. But I think the area that I'm really consistent in is I'm definitely a thinker. So that's naturally what I do best is think about everything. So I make time every single day to think. So I feel like I use that in every area of my life. Like I need to really mull over decisions and strategize how I'm going to handle issues with school, with parenting, with my relationship with my husband. And so I do a lot of um, journaling and just getting my thoughts out on paper so that I can figure out how I'm going to handle whatever it is in my life, from money to relationships to business,
That's
everything.
awesome. When I was talking to your sister again, when I was interviewing her, she mentioned that the thing that she needs, right, based on her responsibility, is that harmony, that 4
Yeah.
a.m. Right. So I want to. So you take. So I want to take her. So if you look at Crystal's example, and she used her responsibility and her harmony because that's what we kind of talked there. And you take what you just said. Okay, what you just said. So I want everybody to see this. So you see. So here, um, Stephanie is using her responsibility, right? She's saying that for me each day to be successful, my priority is take time to think. Like, look how much thinking she's got going on, right? There's a lot of thinking there. So for her, even outside of this, right? This is what motivates her, obviously, in getting things done. But she's saying, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to prioritize this. People with high responsibility, there's a right way to do things, and there's the thing you do first, and it's the way you do it. So without sometimes even always recognizing the different combinations that we do, here you are utilizing your responsibility and saying, okay, this is a need that I have, this is what I have to do. And I love that you brought that up, because most people don't look at their strengths in terms of needs. They don't look at, okay, this is what I need, this is what I have to do, this is important part for me. And we go, we hit automatic pilot the moment our alarm goes off, and then we go through our day.
Yes.
But when we really implement and we say, okay, how do I set myself up to win? You know how I need to set myself up to win? I gotta do this. If I do this,
Yes.
it's like everything else happens, right? So I love what your sister said, because we're talking about her need to wake up and have that alone time
Yes.
because of her harmony and responsibility. And you're saying, like, no, I need this. I need a journal. I need to write out. I need to take that time. And I love that you're doing that, because that, in those spaces, when we fulfill that, it's easier for us to show up and be who we need to be everywhere else, right?
Yeah, and it gives you energy. And I love the way that it's helped Crystal and I, the way that we talk, because it was a huge aha for me when she had that realization of I have to get up early because it activates my harmony if I don't. And
Yep.
it activates it in a bad way, even with her husband. And I realized, harmony is high for me too. And I was like, you're right. That is one of the reasons why if I allow myself to sleep in until my kids wake up, or even sometimes I kind of feel a little bit drained when I have time with my husband before he goes to work. It's not
Yeah.
that I don't want to spend time with them, or the same thing with Crystal, that she doesn't want to spend time with her husband, but when that harmony is activated first thing in the morning in the basement of it, the way she says it, she's like, it activates my harmony, starts zinging first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
and then you're already thinking about how somebody else is feeling. And for me, empathy is high too. So then I'm taking responsibility for, if my husband's stressed out in the morning, now my day starts out, or if the kids wake up fighting, my day starts out with disharmony
Yeah.
and me feeling somebody else's emotions, and not only feeling them but taking responsibility for them.
Yes.
So
Love
then
that.
that's what I think about.
Yes. And this is what's so cool, is that I love that you're so aware of that. This is where people miss out on the benefit of strengths, is they
Yeah.
have this report and they don't know what's actually in front of them. But because you know that process, you can see, isn't it? And it's almost like, you ever walk in your house in the dark, and you know exactly what step to take. So you're not stepping on Legos, you know what turn to take. It could be completely dark, but because you know exactly right to do, right? Yeah, if I were to be in your house and I were to wake up in pitch dark, I would, I'd probably go to the
Right.
hospital, right?
Right. Right.
The same thing with our strengths. when we know our needs, we know our motivators, we can wake up in our own environment. We can be alert in our own environment and know exactly what we need, where to go, how to turn, all these different things. But when we're waking up and just in this, we're like in this funk, in this thing, and we're not serving ourselves, we're not serving those needs, we're not recognizing those motivators, we set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up for failure every single time. And so gosh, I love it, Stephanie. Because here's the thing, I want to say this about you and your sister. You guys are success stories of people that are still implementing strengths. Like I talk to a lot of people that have that, the idea is not that you just came to a seminar or you went through one of my programs or I was, coaching you, that you walked away and didn't actually apply, but that you're actually applying everything we talked about, and so everything that you're aware, and more importantly, you're making the adjustments. You and your sister are talking to each other and being like, that's right, I need to do this. That's right, you need to do this. Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was talking to her, you guys are actually building your business by utilizing your strengths and doing those things.
Yeah, we are. And that it's funny because that was really what drew me to come to your thing in the first place. Was I want to grow my business and my strengths, and I want to learn more about what I'm good at, and da 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 da. And it quickly went into Philip's life coaching me on how to handle my homeschooling woes, and he's got me in tears, and I'm doing all these activities to release all this trauma. And it's just was really life changing for my personal life. I feel like, to learn, oh my gosh, like this is why I feel the way I do in with other people's emotions. And um it's helped me to draw boundaries is a big thing for me, because I realize I've been pretty boundaryless because I feel so much.
Yeah. Well, and you're a
Yeah.
great success story of so many of those things, right? So your mom, so I know, so yeah, a friend invited your mom invited you, you invited a sister, and you guys had another sister take the assessment. All of your husbands, right, have taken the assessment, right? And I just think like think of that from a level of understanding. And I think you guys are just a great example of wanting to understand more on a deeper level all of these different processes, not just for yourself, but the people around you. That's phenomenal.
Right. And the kids, like I'm in the process of like one at a time, which making them take the little strengths explorer and understanding how they tick and how I can help the culture of the family improve and the relationships between the kids improve and all that stuff.
I love it. I love it. So what would you say what is the talent that you struggle the most with? What is the strength that you feel like you struggle the most with?
Probably harmony.
Probably harmony. And
yeah.
Why is that?
Because I allow harmony. Harmony's been something that I realize I've allowed to betray me a lot, like to put harmony above all else. And so because I hate rocking the boat so bad, then I don't advocate for myself. It causes me a lot of stress when people aren't getting along. And so I haven't seen it as a strength until one thing that since I've talked to you last, that somebody said to me, they were reading like the Beatitudes and said like, blessed are the peacemakers. And that hit me so hard. Like, whoa, that is so true for me, of like somebody who does try to seek peace in the combination of harmony and empathy. I'm learning how to make it serve me. But I'd say that overwhelmingly it's been hard for me because it just stresses me out. Discontent stresses me out a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you recognize, like, and I'll be totally 100% honest. My woo's my number 2. It is the one strength that I always have to keep in check because, like you have put harmony above all other things,
right?
Which means and I love that you use the word self-betray, right? I too have self-betrayed a lot in areas of my life because of my woo. I'm trying to win others over. I'm trying to make them happy. I'm trying to get them to like me. And so I have become a chameleon, or I liked what they liked, or I did this, or I did that. And I was constantly self-betraying in order to win them over because I had that desire to. So as much as this is a talent for me, it's also a hindrance that I have to always manage. And I love that I want to be super clear with this. Just because you struggle with a talent and you struggle with something, what that says is that you're just aware of, you want to be aware of it. You want to be aware of what's triggering some of your processes that are bringing you down. If you're unaware of these processes and you just think, I'm just going to live on automatic pilot, and you want different results, you're not being realistic, right? Change comes when you're willing to make three things: investment of time, money, and energy. You have to be willing to do that if you want change in your life. If you just want something different, then we hope all day long. But if you really want change, and change comes from being aware of what we're doing wrong or how things are hindering us. And so I just love that you're aware of that. And I think that the more people can be honest with what their hindrances is and where they can find them, it's like almost this kind of thing where you're just kind of moving forward and be like, okay, am I good with this? Am I not good with this? Am I good with this? Am I not good with this? And that way you create boundaries around how does it serve you. So like what you said, because you don't want to be in disharmony, you make sure that your harmony is a priority by journaling, right? By setting up your day to win, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And also like even just using the strength of like the input and intellection of like thinking through, how am I going to handle this relationship conflict? What can I say that would make it least likely to be disharmonious? Disharmonious. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So what do you think has been the greatest understanding from strengths for you? Like what has been the greatest thing that you've learned, your takeaway in terms of you diving into this world of your strengths?
Like I said, I still feel like I have so much to learn and to understand like how to energize myself in my strengths. I think just the realization that, oh my gosh, I can change every area of my life by understanding what activates me and what makes me tick is just super exciting to me. Like when you did the exercise of like, take your daily activities and figure out what talents energize you and drain you, that's huge. I'm like, dang, like when you gave the example of, was it dishes that you hate?
Yeah, no, it was laundry and dishes, right? So I said, so for me, laundry, so specifically with the example, I said laundry, it motivates me to do, so I use my arranger, I use positivity for laundry, right? And I'm like, so I, because I love it. I love doing as a ranger, I want to do 4 or 5 things at the same time. So I could put a load of laundry, I could do a little bit of work, I could do the dishes, I could vacuum, and I'm good with it. But when I do the laundry, let's say I'm hanging out with the kids, we're playing a card game, we're just playing a game or something, and all of a sudden I get a text, Melissa's grocery shopping and she's coming home in, 10 minutes. And I feel like I got to rush and do something. Otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. Man, that triggers the basement of my woo so hard. And my harmony number 34, that I'm like, I don't even want to, I hate feeling like this. Like, I don't mind working hard. I love doing it, but I don't want to do it and feel like I'm in trouble and I got to make it happy. Does that make sense? So for that was, that was the example I used.
Yeah, that I still feel like I'm really working through like, okay, well, what is it? Sometimes I'll tell Crystal, I got to talk to Philip because I got to figure out what is it about this thing that why do I feel so much better when I do this, but I hate doing that? Like, I think just the realization, like I said, of knowing like, hey, if I can figure this out, then I can improve everything. I can make everything better.
I love that. If I can figure this out, then I can improve all these other things following that. That's the benefit of really looking at where those dots are connected. So I love this. Yeah. That's awesome. So what would you say then? So if, as the recording, the people that are on live, or what would you say, what would be the biggest recommendation that you would give that you've gained value from in terms of strengths? What would be the thing that you would say, this is what you need to do, or this is, what would be that recommendation that you would have for someone based on what you've gone through and your own strengths and your own experience?
I would say if you haven't taken the strengths assessment, stop it.
Yeah, right. Number one, do the thing.
Yeah, do the thing. I mean, if your child broke their arm today, even if you're broke, you would take them to the ER and pay the copay.
Yep.
Take the assessment. And utilize Philip, because Philip knows this stuff like it is his superpower. Like it is no joke. I mean, I just feel like having how long is the report? 26 pages?
25, yeah.
It might as well be in Russian.
So
I think you read it and you're like, oh yeah. I mean, it's always super fun when you read it the first time. And when we had all of like the husbands in the family and my sister, and I was like, oh, this is so fun. Like, oh yeah, it's totally you. You totally do that. And it's funny and all that.
yeah.
But that doesn't tell you how to use the strengths and how to get out of the basement of them and how to utilize it to change your life. Like you really need guidance in learning how to turn those talents into strengths, and it is invaluable. I mean, I've told you this before, Philip, like I have put in tens of thousands of dollars into coaching. I have coached with top-notch coaches in business that I love, that have been life-changing and have been worth every penny. But the work I've done with Philip has hands down been the most life-changing, I could cry, like the most life-changing guidance and coaching I've ever had, for sure. So the fact that he's on here doing these calls like a couple times a week, like soak everything up and invest in getting help, because it's incredible for what it can do for relationships. I mean, Crystal and I, every day, it's like we realize something else. Crystal had somebody over for dinner the other night, and she was like, I couldn't tell if they liked my food or not. And after their guest had left, her husband was like, I think they thought your burrito was too spicy. And she was like, well, his number one strength is individualization. So that had to be it. Like he could just tell.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. That's so good.
Because her husband does pick up on the most, it's crazy watching him and appreciating the people I appreciate in my life now.
Yeah.
Like knowing their strengths, I see them in completely different light. Like her husband, it's crazy watching, like, oh my gosh, he really does. Like, even with me, I don't feel like he knows me crazy well, but whenever I go visit, like he'll come home and he'll be like, oh, I brought you and your sister this, or I was thinking you guys could go out and do that, or I found this when I was out for you. Like he knows, he picks up on what people are good at and what people like and what they don't like really well, because it's natural for him.
Yeah.
And I never would have appreciated that about him or even recognized it before.
That's so good. I love that you said that, right? Because that is so I remember when she had her husband take the assessment. I remember when we had talked about it. They were on vacation and there was some
Yeah.
there. And I remember us talking about individualization. And I love that so here you are, right? As not necessarily you're the sister-in-law, and you get whatever interactions you get. I know you guys live in two different states, so it's not like
Yeah.
you're over there all the time, right? But
Right.
that the fact that because right? Let's go back to this quote right here, because I think this is just a wonderful example of what you're saying that so many people often miss, right? That right here, in this quote here, as you begin to think seriously about unique constellation talents that you have. So in this case, what you have, you start to think about what your brother-in-law has and what makes him unique. And the fact that individualization now is his number one, you're like, oh, I can see it. I appreciate it. I value it. I acknowledge it. And this is the value of knowing not just you, but knowing what's valuable to other people. We see people in different lights, and then we celebrate that, right? We honor that. We give them permission to be that. So I think you guys are a great example as a family, not just of obviously knowing each other's strengths, but also as an example of supporting each other in your strengths. I know I've talked to you and your sister a couple times, and you guys talk a lot about, building your business in your strengths, right? Working together in your strengths, doing the things that you want to do in your strengths. And that is just, I love that you guys are on that path and you guys have made that commitment. That's just beautiful. I just think it's wonderful.
We love it. We love everything about it.
I can tell. Well, cool. Well, thank you. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for
Thanks
being,
for having me on.
yeah, no, thanks for being here. And thanks for being vulnerable. I think that not everybody is ready and open to talk about, number one, what motivates them, but their struggles. And I love that you're seeing your struggles in people. Often look at their bottom five, right? And they say, oh, this is where I struggle. I can point out 10 times more often in the stories that you're struggling in your top five. And
Right.
it's because that's really, it's what you naturally do. My positivity is just natural for me. Does it get me more in trouble than my harmony at number 34? Hands down, right? I gotta be way more attentive to that. So I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate you being honest. I appreciate, because that's how not just you're learning, but it's how other people can gain value, because it's vulnerability that gives courage to other people to also be vulnerable and also look at what is great about me, but what am I struggling with? So thank you. Thank you for being on. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being such an advocate for change everywhere else as well, right? In
Oh,
your
thanks.
family and other people. I just think that that's a great, you're a great example of finding a cause and a purpose and something that motivates you and taking it, to other people. So way to go. I commend you for that.
Well, I want to thank you for everything you do because you're changing the world. So
Well,
keep
thank
doing
you.
it.
I will promise you, I'll keep doing it. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye. Oh man. Okay. Perfect. So much fun. So much fun. All right. So what I want to do is I want you guys to do me a favor and raise your hand if you guys found value in that, in what Stephanie was talking about. Maybe she was talking about some of the different examples that she's learned from, different correlations. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I want you guys to know that's my goal. Like my goal is, so I will say this, Stephanie, thank you for your compliments. Thank you for complimenting me. Thank you for um, acknowledging, because that's part of so that you guys get to know me, right? Let me pull up my report. So, oh, actually, let me just pull up this so that you guys can see, right? What motivates me. So if my goal, my mission, so let's move Philip back over here. What do I want to do? If my goal is to move the world, I want to change people's lives. I do 100%. It's what I want to do. It's what I feel called to do now. It's 100% what I feel called to do, um, in terms of what I'm doing. So here I am. I want to win you over. I want to get to know you. I want to figure out what you're like. I want to get to know you, and I want to celebrate you. I want to talk positive about what's amazing about you, but I want you to take action. 100%. That is my goal. I'm not here to. I'm here to inspire you. I want to be that guy. Like Melissa was telling me the other day. Oh, hype man. She was watching something on Instagram. She goes, Philip, that's what you should do. You should be someone's hype man. You want to hire me? I'll be your hype man, right? Because that's what I do. When I see your strengths, when I work with you, I tell you about, this is what's great, this is what's awesome, this is what's awesome. Let's stay out of these arenas, but let's really kick it in high gear in terms of what makes you awesome. I want to be your I want to be your hype man. I want to be your hype man. I want to help you. I want to move you. I want to get you to take action. I want you to celebrate in ways and do things that you never thought were possible. I want you to achieve your goals. And I love this. What Stephanie first met, the very first time we ever met, was about her business and about how she felt like she'd have the skill set to be successful in her business. And we completely turned that around into, let's be successful in your business by leaning into what makes you great. And yeah, it turned into, okay, let's talk about my marriage. Okay, let's talk about homeschooling, right? It turned into other things. But originally it started, right, where she wanted to achieve a goal, but she doesn't have what I have. She doesn't have what my wife has. She's not like her, she's different from her mom. Her mom is polar opposite from from them. But how can we work hard? How can we celebrate? How can we accomplish everything that we want in what makes us unique and what makes us special? That is the goal. So when I do interviews, when I'm teaching, when I'm coaching, that is my goal. That's the reason why I want to meet with you. It is 100% what I want to meet with you, because I believe that you're capable of way more than what you're doing. I believe that there's something you want to do in life. I believe there's something you want to achieve in life. There's a goal that you want to do. However, we often don't know what motivates us, do we? We often don't know. So if we take a look at this example, here we are, here you are. right? You're the way you naturally think, feel, and behave. Maybe you just took the assessment, you still don't know. But do you know what motivates you towards the goal that you want? Is it from a relationship building standpoint? Do you need to back off on your influence? Do you need to lead more with executing? Right. I love so if we look at Stephanie, right, she needs that thinking. This is important to her. She needs that. This feeds her needs. It feeds her strengths. It's incredibly important to her. Talk about Crystal, her harmony. That's incredibly important to her. Waking up in the early, it sets up her day to win. And doing that is what's helping her achieve her goals. Giving Stephanie taking time to do what she's doing is what's helping her achieve her goals. So know what motivates you. Know what your internal motivations are. Okay. So there's a couple different things that I want to go through as we end this call. Is I want you to think about, for those of you that are either learning your strengths, that are want to master your strengths, and want to get more involved in your strengths. I want a couple different things on a checklist. Okay, look at this as like a checklist. Number one is, do you have a clear understanding? And when I say you have a clear understanding, do you know the report? Do you know what's in the report? Do you know how the report works? Do you know the definitions of each talent? Are you basing the definitions of the talent based on your own? So for example, you see competition. Are you basing competition off your understanding of competition or off of Gallup's definitions? If you go to page 23, 24, and 25, those are Gallup's definitions. It's the very first assignment I give people when I work with them. If you don't know what Gallup's definition is, you're going to base it off of your own definition. You'll base it off of your own understanding. Okay. So get a clear understanding, number one, of the report. Okay. Number two is, and we talked about this a couple times with Stephanie, awareness. You have got to be aware that the very things that make you amazing, the very talents, the very strengths that are awesome about you, they're also the very things that hinder you, because there are needs. They're the way you naturally think, feel, and behave, and they haven't served you all the time because of the stories, traumas, life experiences that you've gone through. It's a reality. So be very clear, be aware. How does this help me? Again, one of the assignments I give to people that I work with is I have them write out their stories. I need to know, they need to see it. They need to see how that story that happened when they were 10 years old or 11, or when they were in college, or last week when they were talking to their spouse. You need to be very clear what strengths, what talents were serving you, and which ones were in the basement. Okay, we have to define this. Next is appreciation. When people don't have appreciation, I didn't have appreciation for positivity. In fact, I didn't have appreciation for woo up until I would say about a year and a half ago. This was after I was already helping people, their reports and everything. I didn't have a clear appreciation of it because I felt like it hurt me in so many ways. And so I still, every single day, I'm practicing at appreciating my woo, because I have stories and traumas and experiences that people have used me, they have taken advantage of me, that I put myself in situations that has not served me. I've self-betrayed because of woo. And my entire mission is to meet you, engage in you. I want to use woo in a way that I can connect with you, that we can work together, and we can change lives. We can impact the world. That's how I want to use my woo to serve me. Does that make sense? So I've had to understand the appreciation of it. Next is practicing your strengths. It's funny, Earl, and you've maybe seen him in the chat, but he said, Philip, what does this mean, right? That's geek speak about practicing your strengths. And what I mean about practicing your strengths, and I think that Stephanie did a great example of talking about, how I want to teach people to practice in their strengths, especially when I work with them one-on-one, is I want you to see, how do you do the dishes in your strengths? How do you find the needs and the motivates to do the laundry? How do you go on date night in your strengths? How do you wake up in the morning? How do you go to bed? Right? I want to show you, we want to practice everything that you do within your strengths. Well, in your talents, so we can turn them into strengths, right? Super, super important. Next is, we want to apply them at what you want to do. So up until I think, again, Stephanie's a great example. When I first met with her, she wanted to meet with me on growing her business and her strengths. Very quickly, it turned into, okay, help me understand this about my personal life. Help me understand this about homeschooling. And then once we understood some basic fundamentals, we started talking about business near the end of working together. But what people want from the very get-go is they want to be successful in what they do with their strengths, but they're skipping all of this. They want to skip all of this and go straight to application. that I want to do this in my business, in my relationships. I want to fix my marriage. I want to do all these things. But that's where they want to do it, because that's where the need is the greatest, right? That's where it hurts the most. That's where the pain point is. Health, your goals, your business, money, success. The pain point is right there. And what I need to do is help you. If you don't do this right here, applying them, you won't apply them. You won't apply them because you won't see them. You won't apply them because you don't know where they're at. You won't apply them because they're not, you haven't worked through all this. And this is the process. This is an important part of the process, that once you go through this and you can see all this, man, applying it, you can look at it everywhere. Great example was what, Crystal was able to see her husband's individualization from an experience at dinner, because she has been doing all of this, that she can see not just the application of her own strengths, but the application of someone else's strengths. Okay. So I love her, or how they use it, right? Or how it's showing up, that sort of thing. Partnerships and relationships. This is probably one of my favorite things. I've actually been doing more relationship coaching lately because of this idea. I've been meeting with more couples because they're struggling in this area. They like me have gone 20 years of marriage, 30 years of marriage, 10 years of marriage, and they don't know the way their spouse naturally thinks, feels, and behaves. So how can I support him? How can I support her, right? How can we support each other and not nitpick the processes, right? You have a unique process. And I talked about this last time, right? You have a unique, if you look at your phone, all the apps that you have on your phone, you have a unique iOS system. So does your spouse. So wishing that they would do it in a way that makes sense to you, you're not appreciating their uniqueness, their amazingness. And you need to do more of that so that they can appreciate yours. And the more you appreciate each other's natural way of thinking, feeling, behaving, and support that, you guys can thrive together, complement each other, instead of one trying to force the other person to see it my way. Does that make sense? Because you don't operate in that way. So knowing this dramatically changes and create some amazing awareness. And the last is self-expression and self-regulation. And this is what I talk about. This is where I'm at right now, right? Is I understand all these things, I practice these things, I utilize these things, but I'm always working on self-expression and regulation. How much positivity can I give, and where do I got to pull back? How much woo do I give, and where do I pull back? How much activator do I lean in with, and where do I pull back? Because there's a balance there. I can't just be, if I do all activator, I'm actually getting nothing done. I'm just starting new projects. If I do all woo, I'm only meeting new people and I'm not actually maintaining relationships. If I do all positivity, then I'm not hearing what you're struggling with. I'm not hearing what actually is going on. I'm just trying to move you to feeling better. Does that make sense? So I want to make sure that you understand this process is a process of mastering your strengths. If you're really committed to really wanting to say, okay, how do I utilize this stuff? It is a process. It is. You've spent 20, 30 years, of life, 40 years, 50 years of life with stories, traumas, and experiences, to think all of a sudden you're just going to get this report and everything's going to change. You're just going to know how to do it. You're just misleading yourself. If people want change, real change, there's investment involved of time, money, and energy. You have to be willing to invest. If you just want something to be different, you're just going to sit on the sidelines and hope, right? You're just going to sit on the sidelines and hope. You have to recognize, what do you want to be different? And are you willing to invest the time, money, and energy? Are you willing to actually do the work? Okay. So for those of you that want to take the next step, that want to move forward, Stephanie talked about it here. Sorry, I was going to say Crystal. Stephanie talked about it here. This is the first thing you want to do, is take the assessment. Number one thing, without the assessment, there's no conversation. If you have family in your life, you're listening to, I'm telling you, Stephanie and Crystal have given a great example of, just even from Tina was the first person that didn't introduce Mary, who Mary, talked to Stephanie, and then Stephanie to Crystal. They're a great example of what can change and what can happen when you understand the dynamics of the people in your life, the way they naturally think, feel, and behave. I mean, both of them now have their kids taking the assessment and the Explorer. So this is the first step, number one. Second step would to be a book a call with me. Let me know what you want to work on. Let me know what your goals are. I did an epiphany call yesterday with a gal, who was struggling with setting new goals. And I showed her exactly when, so we picked the goal and gave her an example of these are the things that motivate within that. Okay. I'd love to help you. If you're not where you want to be and you want to learn how to apply these things in your life, that we can do that. There's an absolute way to do that. But you got to make sure that you're committed to that process. You got to make sure that you're committed to understanding where you're going, where you're headed. Hold on, this kind of caught my attention. My mom is polar opposite, and we needed Philip's help. This was huge for us, by the way. I remember this. I absolutely remember this, Stephanie, where I was basically coaching, because I was having individual appointments. I was coaching, their mom, and talking to Stephanie, talking to Crystal, how they can understand, how they can, and so it was fun. That was a really fun process to kind of go through. And to answer your question, I would absolutely love to talk with you, Lorraine, and absolutely we can talk after surgery, 100%. So thank you guys so much for being on. Do me a favor, raise your hand if you guys found value in being on today. Did you learn something today? Are you going through your own processes? Are you looking for, I hope you took notes, like take notes. And I want you to look at your report. Do you know what motivates you inside of your report? Do you know what motivates you in your top 5? Do you know where you're struggling? Do you know what your hindrances are? Don't move forward and not have a clear understanding. Don't assume. Don't assume anything. You are incredible. You're magical. You can accomplish anything you want. And what you're struggling with is literally right there on the paper. What you're struggling with is right there on your paper, because it's the way you naturally think, feel, and behave. Not your spouse, not your friend, not your partner. It's where you naturally think, feel, and behave and are struggling, because this is where you operate. It's what makes you special and unique. Look for it there. Look for it there. If you can't find it, let me help you find it. That is what I love to do. Now, if you, another thing too, is I've been doing obviously interviews. If you want to have an interview, I'd love to interview you, no matter what stage of the strengths you're at. You don't have to have worked with me before. You don't have to be, whatever. In fact, I have coaches that I'm going to start bringing on, and I'm going to be interviewing some coaches. And how did they coach? What are some of the things they're realizing? Because this will be fun. I want you guys to see different things. I'm going to be interviewing coaches. If you have a organization or a team or a group, I actually have done a private Zoom call for Stephanie and a group of people that she works with, and a group of her relationships. If I can do that for you, I'd love to do that, because I'm moved by this. I'm motivated by this. I'm passionate about this. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful Saturday. Have a beautiful weekend. And I hope that today you have decided to make a commitment to, number one, recognize the way you naturally think, feel, and behave is special, important, and valuable. That you're going to look at, what do I need to do to be more motivated, and what are my needs within my strengths so I can accomplish what I want to achieve, and encourage someone in your life to take the assessment so you can understand them, so you can really understand, like just a friend, even if this is a friend, so you can practice strengths together. One of the greatest benefits, and I've worked with lots of people, one of the funnest people that I think I ever worked with were Stephanie, were Mary, were Crystal, because they had an inner dynamic of family that every time I met with one of them, they were talking about what they talked about with strengths with the other person, and same thing. So it was like, I was meeting individually with them, but then I'd have a conversation about them with all of them. Does that make sense? And it was because they were always talking about it. They're practicing, and they're trying to engage and build up each other and support each other. So it's a fun thing to do, to find someone in your life that wants to personally grow. Self-development is phenomenal, right? I love self-development, a big proponent of it. Strengths is customized personal development. It'll see where you need to go and what you need to do. All right. Love you guys. Have a beautiful weekend. And I will see you guys on Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for our next interview. All right. And I'll post these up online and everything. So love you guys. Thanks again. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.